Welcome back. This is Frank Demore again for May 11, 2011. Again, if this is the first time that you've come to my YouTube channel, I ask that you'd go to my website so you could download my free documentary called The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth. Just go to www.bibleprophecyman.com. There's a link there. Just click the link and you can download it today if you'd like. And what I'm going to be talking about now is if you read the book of Daniel, and specifically chapter 2 and chapter 7, and if you read the book of Revelation, and specifically which I'm going to deal with now in chapter 17, is warnings about the last day events that were going to occur with this generation. And Jesus told us, and he also in Matthew 24 mentions the book of Daniel, or mentions Daniel in this specific prophecy, and it has to do about the Antichrist rising out in the last days, coming out, and where he will be coming from. We know that according to Daniel 2 and 7 that there will be a revived Roman Empire. Many of the younger generation that I speak to, they don't know too much about history, but there used to be an old Roman Empire, and Jesus tells us that this Antichrist will rise from the revived Roman Empire. And if you know the history of the old Roman Empire, you would know that it had two parts to it, the western side and the eastern side. The eastern side was the Islamic nations that used to be in the old Roman Empire, and then the western side are what we know today as the European Union nations. Those are the same nations that used to be in the western side of the old Roman Empire, which, by the way, is already here. The western side and the eastern side, both of them are here, by the way. And so we're paying attention to both sides because we know that the Antichrist is going to rise up, and the leaders, there'll be 10 kings that will give all their power over to this one man, the Antichrist, and he's going to rule the world, and he's going to have control of the world economy. We know that for sure because in Revelation chapter 13 and verses 16 through 17 we see that Jesus tells us that nobody will be able to buy or sell anything unless they take the mark in the name of the beast, which is obviously it says in the scriptures 666. And when you do a study, you'll see that there's other information that I'm not going to go into it right now, but what we do know for sure is a mark will be placed in the right hand or in the forehead, and unless you bow down to the Antichrist, you will not be able to buy anything or sell anything. In other words, you'll be X'd out of the economy. Now, in the last days, this Roman Empire is supposed to come back. It is not the United States of America. If you read chapter 2, chapter 7 of the book of Daniel, and if you read the entire book of Daniel, the United States of America is not mentioned. It's not even given one sentence. And so we know that the lack of information speaks volumes to us about what happened to the United States. If they were supposed to be the most powerful nation in the world, something must have happened so that they're not even given one sentence. And obviously, in this generation, where all of the signs are taking place, as Jesus warned in Matthew chapter 24, we are actually seeing what is bringing down America as a world power. Now, there are many variables that are causing America's decline, and one of those is obviously the economy. The economy is crashing. There's a massive debt, and just next week they're going to be voting on it again to raise the ceiling of the debt. This is a huge stake that's going to be driven into America's heart because everyone knows, all the political leaders know, and they're not going to say it, but they know they can't pay the debt now. And so we're living on borrowed time here in the United States of America. Now, the currency of the United States is also declining. And this is what I'm going to be pointing out today to show you that while the United States is declining, the European Union, although they are having some problems, they've been accelerating and growing, as you're going to see from this news article that came out of Europe from Spiegel Online. the title, I hope that you can see this, and if you go to my website, you'll be able to click to this link with no problems. It says the rival currencies take aim at dollar's dominance. I'm going to read some of the, as you can see here, this article is probably at least three pages long, but I'm going to give you the highlights to show you America's declining, and this euro, which is the currency that 17 nations of the European Union would keep in mind. These are the same nations that used to be in the old Roman Empire. So I'm talking about the revived Roman Empire. So I'm going to give you the most highlighted that I think is the most important to show you the decline of the dollar. It's going to cause ripple effects, and it's going to change the world. And you'll see why. It says, in reality, the U.S. currency is currently plagued by an acute bout of weakness. Its exchange rate has stabilized at around $1.50 to the euro, which is not far from the low point that it reached before the outbreak of the financial crisis. Since the beginning of the year, the dollar has lost 13% against the euro. Now, here's another fact that you really need to know. America's been around for almost 230 years. They've had the currency, they've been strong, and then the euro only was born in the year 2000. And a year after it was born, it started to dominate or beat the US dollar on the market, and it's accelerated every year since, which is unbelievable when you think about it. That small, brand new euro that those European Union nations are using has outdone the American dollar. So this should show you, give you a really good perspective on the decline of America. All right, let me go on. It says not only is the euro, I skipped one second. It says the decline in the value of the dollar on the currency markets, however, is merely an indication of the profound global development. The dollar is in danger of losing its role as a global reserve currency and the world's benchmark units for exports. Now, I've been warning for years to watch the dollar die, and over the last couple of years alone, many of the world leaders have been warning that they want to get rid of the dollar as a reserve currency and bring in other currencies. And this, I'm telling you, what's going to happen is you're going to see a new currency being born that will be used as the reserve currency. These are the footsteps getting to this one world financial system that the Antichrist he's going to control it. Says not only is the euro gaining in importance despite the debt crisis in Greece, Portugal, and Ireland, but the currencies of emerging nations like China, India, and Brazil will likely play a larger role in the near future, both the global trade and the investment practices of central banks. The dollar no longer has a monopoly, according to the U.S. economist Barry Ettengreen, the professor of the California in Berkeley. There are many reasons, both short-term and long-term, for the decline of the greenback. And when they're talking about greenback, they're talking about the U.S. dollar, a currency once coveted around the world. The financial policies of the U.S., Barack Obama, and his predecessors cast doubt over whether the U.S. will ever be able to repay its debts. And this is what I've been warning about. And now they're saying it. So it doesn't look good for the United States. The rating agency Standard & Poor's has already threatened to downgrade the credit rating of the only remaining superpower, which they're talking about, obviously, the United States. It says, to make matters even worse, the low interest rate policy pursued by Bernanke's Fed with future erode the value of the dollar. The central bank is printing money virtually without limit to finance the U.S. federal budget. That's a guarantee for higher inflation. When you keep printing the money that you can't pay back, eventually what happens is the rest of the country say, we're not dealing with you anymore. And guess what happens? The sinking of the dollar and obviously that would be the sinking of America as well. Now, going on, there's a part of this article, when you go to read it, you'll see it here. It says, Euro's rising popularity. And I really believe that there's a reason for this, is because there's a shift taking place where this old revived Roman Empire is getting stronger and stronger. And as I said, they do have problems, but they're actually getting stronger than the United States. And we know that we're supposed to be looking towards this old revived Roman Empire. And you will see these developments taking place, because we know for sure that the Antichrist is going to rise up from this old Roman Empire. Now, whether he comes from the eastern side or the western side, or whether they combine, that's yet to be seen. But we do know that both the east and the west sides are already here. Now, according to this article that the Euro's raising popularity, says these changes are being felt only gradually, but there is no mistaking them. The dollar is still used twice as many foreign exchange transactions as the euro, but its share has steadily declined over the past 10 years while the popularity of the euro has risen. It's a similar story when it comes to currency reserves. Last year, the world's central banks kept 61% of the holdings in dollars. In 2000, this figure was nearly 10% higher. The vacant space that leaves in the bank's vaults is primarily filled by the euro. Its share rose from 18% in 2000 to around 26% 10 years later. So you can see the significance in growth between the dollar and the euro. The euro is really outpacing the dollar. The euro is also gaining ground in its role as a pegged currency. In the mid-2009, 54 countries had tied their currencies to the dollar, and already half as many have been pegged to the euro. So you can actually see, if you're watching the news, you're seeing this power shift taking place, and it's leading right to Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, and a fulfillment of Revelation chapter 17. It says the euro has excellent chances of continuing to gain ground. Balak predicts that its success will be decided in the competition over who has the better stability strategy, which essentially is a contest between the Fed and the European Central Bank. It also boils down to a simple question of who is better at keeping inflation under control. And we know definitely that's not Bernanke, because he wants to keep printing the money. And when he keeps printing the money, like I said, and all the economists are saying that, you're not going to be able to pay your bills. The rest of the countries are going to push you away. The dollar will die, and you can see the birth of this Roman Empire gaining strength for these last days. Now, here's the question. Do you believe it? Well, you better believe it, because Jesus spoke it. It's already happened, and it's in process right now. I mean, what are the chances of these old Roman Empire nations coming back again in the last days, which they have done? And many people don't even know this, but in the last part of 2009, it was the first time since Caesar Nero that one man was elected to run all of Europe, those European Union nations. This is unheard of. So the positions we see for this Antichrist, I believe that it was probably established, and whether he comes again from this eastern or the western side, we're not too sure. I mean, we have some idea, but we're watching the news, we're seeing the developments, both the east and the western side of the old Roman Empire. But here's the bottom line. Both of the eastern and western sides are already here. Both of them, by the way, are growing stronger and stronger in comparison to the United States. And soon, the United States, you better get ready for this, because the American dollar is going to die. And when it does, you're going to understand the things that we warned about have come true. And so you really need to prepare yourself for what's coming. Now, if you keep watching the news, you'll see that there is economic problems. They'll continue. Sorry to tell you that.